Now let me be clear. Let's balance this just a little bit. Because while it's true that we should worship and praise nobody but the Lord, there is nothing wrong with appreciating the people that God uses. There's nothing wrong with appreciating the people that God uses. Speaking for myself, I am grateful for the people who have helped me in my life. People who have looked out for me, people who have cared for me, people who have inspired me, people who took the time to hear me and see me and value me. That's something that's very precious to me. But at the end of the day, ultimately, it was God who used them. So while I appreciate the good deeds of the people, I recognize that had it not been for God using those people, none of those deeds would have occurred. And family, hear me, something is terribly wrong when we love and respect and honor the people that God uses more than the God who's using those people. I'll give you a perfect example. There are many in the church who place the man or woman of God, the pastor, the preacher, on the same level as God. They don't just love them. They don't just respect them, but they straight up worship them. They straight up treat them as if they are God themselves. They treat them like it was them that saved them, when in actuality ain't no preacher and ain't no pastor died to save nobody. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Ain't no preacher, ain't no pastor died to save nobody. I ain't hung on no cross. Pastor ain't hung on no cross. No bishop you see on TV hung on no cross. Ain't none of us died for nobody. So don't you dare worship us. We're human like you. I remember once years ago, I was talking to somebody that heard I was a preacher. And they came up to me and they said, "So, you a preacher?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "So, how many souls have you saved?" Did y'all hear that? How many souls have you saved? To which I instantly replied, 0. Because I don't save nobody. I can't save nobody. Let's start there. I can't save you, and you can't save me. God does the saving. God does the changing. God does the fixing. God does the rescuing. All I am is an instrument that God chooses to use. And God has all kinds of instruments at his proposal. My friend, at his disposal. My friend, Reverend R.J. Waller, says it like this: uses all kinds of people to reach all kinds of people. So don't think for one second that the preacher that you're used to is the only one that God can use, because God has all kinds of instruments at his disposal. And if he can use my crazy self, he can use anybody. But like that songwriter said a long time ago, I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody who can save anybody. And I once heard another preacher say it like this: God is the chef. I'm just the waiter. I'm just the waiter. And family, there is a level of reverence, respect, and honor that only God should receive. Why? Because there are certain things that only God can do. Not only that, but there is a certain place in our lives that only God should have. Think about when somebody wins an award and they get up and give an acceptance speech and they thank God, they thank their mama, and then they thank a bunch of other random people. Well, as we look back over our lives, there are some thank you speeches that ought to only have one name in them. There are some thank you speeches that should only include one name. It should be a really long speech, but there should only be one name that we call. Some thank you speeches ought to say nobody but the Lord. Some thank you speeches ought to say, to God be the glory. Some thank you speeches should say, Lord, you are good and your mercy endureth forever. Who do you attribute your success to? Nobody but the Lord. How did you make it out of that mess you were in? Nobody but the Lord. Who woke you up this morning? Nobody but the Lord. Who healed your body? Nobody but the Lord. Who gave you the gifts and the talents that you have? Nobody but the Lord. Who kept you safe from all kinds of hurt, harm, and danger, seen and unseen? Nobody but the Lord. Who's giving you the power to breathe right now? Nobody but the Lord. Who put food on your table, who put clothes on your back, who gave you a reasonable portion of health and strength. Nobody but the Lord. Hallelujah. Nobody but the Lord. Nobody